welcome to the deep dive. Today we're doing things a little differently.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we're headed to Spain.
Sounds fun.
Well, not literally, of course, but we're diving into this Spanish guidebook all about teamwork,
Okay.
specifically in associations.
Interesting. I don't think we've ever looked at anything quite like this before.
I know, right? It's a bit niche,
Yeah.
but
But I bet there are some good insights in there for everyone.
oh, absolutely. It's packed with practical advice and techniques for building a strong team.
Okay.
Whether you're running a volunteer group or a corporate department, even just planning a family vacation.
I like it. So what's the main focus of this Spanish guide?
Well, they really emphasize this idea of associations being like schools of participation.
Schools of participation. Okay, I'm intrigued. What exactly does that mean?
So it boils down to this idea that associations can give you a space
Okay.
to learn and grow
Mm.
through being involved.
So it's not just about being a member on paper. It's about actively participating and contributing.
Exactly. And the guidebook breaks it down into three essential elements:
Okay, let's hear it.
wanting to, knowing how, and being able to.
So you need the motivation, the skills, and the opportunity, right?
Yep. It's like a three-legged stool.
Why
You
say?
need all three legs or it
Okay.
all falls apart.
Makes sense. Does the guidebook give any examples of this in action?
Oh, yeah, for sure. There is this one story about
Yeah.
an association that wanted to challenge a new development project
Hmm.
that was threatening a local park.
Oh, wow.
And so they first learned about urban planning.
So they could understand the process
Right.
and make informed arguments.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So they had that motivation, they gained that knowledge, and then the association itself provided the structure and support to actually take action.
That's a fantastic example of how this school of participation idea works in practice.
It is. It shows how these groups can really empower people to make a difference. Now, have you ever
Yeah.
felt hesitant to contribute to a team because you felt like you didn't have the right skills?
Oh, totally. Imposter syndrome is real, right?
Or maybe you had the skills, but the environment was just so chaotic that
Yeah.
you didn't even know where to start?
Oh, yeah. Been there, done that.
Well, that's where the guidebook's emphasis on organization comes in,
Okay.
because it argues that even with motivation and skills,
Hmm.
participation can be hindered by just poor structure.
That makes sense.
Like not having clearly defined roles or effective communication channels.
Right. It's like having all the ingredients for a cake, but no recipe.
Exactly. You might have the desire and the skills to bake,
Yeah.
but without a plan and the right tools, you're probably going to end up with a mess.
A very delicious mess, maybe.
Maybe, but not what you were hoping for.
True.
So the guidebook dives into these 4 stages of team development.
Oh, interesting. Like Tuckman stages.
Yeah, exactly. Formation, storming, norming, and performing.
Right. It's a classic framework for understanding how teams evolve.
It is, and each stage has its own challenges and opportunities.
Yeah, for sure.
So let's start with formation.
Okay, back to the beginning.
What do we need to know about that initial phase?
Well, the guidebook describes formation as this period of politeness.
Okay.
And that initial enthusiasm,
Right, everyone's excited to be there.
it's like a first date.
Uh-huh.
Everyone's on their best behavior.
I like that analogy.
But under the surface, there's often a lot of uncertainty as people are trying to figure out their roles and how they fit into the group.
That makes sense. So would you say it's important to establish clear expectations and communication right from the start?
Absolutely. That helps to minimize that uncertainty and sets the team up for success.
And it's also about building those relationships, right? Like creating that foundation of trust.
Oh, for sure. That trust is crucial, especially when you move into the next stage.
Ah, yes. Storming. When things get real.
Yeah. The honeymoon phase is over.
Right. And the real work begins.
And the guidebook actually uses the word casualties to describe this stage.
Casualties. That sounds intense.
Well, it's referring to the potential for conflict and disagreements,
Okay.
as personalities and working styles clash.
Right, because not everyone's going to be comfortable with that level of intensity.
Exactly. And some people might even decide to leave the team at this stage.
That makes sense. So it's really about recognizing that conflict is a natural part of team development.
Yes. It's not something to be afraid of or avoid.
So how can our listeners approach this storming stage in a way that minimizes those casualties?
Well, the guidebook suggests setting some ground rules early on
Okay.
for communication and conflict resolution.
So like a protocol for raising concerns or...
Exactly. And also encouraging active listening and promoting a culture of respect where different opinions are valued.
Those are great tips. It's about creating a safe space for disagreement
Right.
while still keeping everyone focused on those shared goals.
And the guidebook reminds us that the storming stage, while it can be tough, it's actually super important for growth.
Because that's where you work through those differences.
Yeah. And the team starts to develop its own identity and working style.
Okay, so it sounds like it's not about avoiding conflict altogether.
No, not a
It's about managing it effectively.
Exactly. And if a team can do that, they move on to the norming stage.
Where things start to calm down a bit.
Right. There's a sense of cohesion and shared understanding.
Like everyone's finally on the same page.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so let's talk about norming. How do you know when a team has reached this stage?
Well, the guidebook highlights a few things to look for.
Okay,
First, conflicts are resolved more easily
makes sense.
and effectively.
Yeah.
Second, team members start to develop a shared language,
Yeah.
and they really understand their roles and responsibilities.
So things are starting to click into place.
Right. There's a sense of camaraderie and mutual support.
Like a real team spirit.
And most importantly, the team starts to focus more on achieving its goals.
Rather than all the internal drama.
Yeah. It's about getting things done.
I like it. So it sounds like norming is that sigh of relief moment when everyone's finally working together smoothly.
Totally.
But the journey doesn't end there, right? We still have that final stage, performing, to look forward to.
Exactly. Where the magic really happens. It's the stage where all that hard work from the earlier stages starts to pay off.
So what does that actually look like in a team? How does the guidebook describe performing?
They describe it as this state of flow, like where everyone's working together seamlessly, leveraging each other's strengths.
Yeah.
And they're just achieving these exceptional results.
Sounds like a dream. Like a well-oiled machine, right?
Exactly.
But how do you actually get there? Is it just a matter of time?
No, it's not automatic.
Okay.
It takes real effort.
So what kind of effort are we talking about?
Well, the guidebook emphasizes that in this stage, it's really important to have a shared plan of action.
So everyone's on the same page about goals and how to get there.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone needs to be crystal clear about the team's goals,
Okay.
the strategies, and their individual roles.
So it's like having that shared vision and then breaking it down into concrete steps.
Exactly.
And then everyone knows what they're responsible for.
Right.
That makes a lot of sense.
And even when things are going well,
Uh-huh.
the guidebook stresses this idea of continuous improvement.
So always looking for ways to do things better.
Yeah. The best teams never stop learning and evolving.
It's like that growth mindset, always pushing forward.
Exactly.
Okay, well, let's go back for a second to those practical tricks the guidebook offers.
Like tricks.
Me too.
What?
Let's start with task allocation.
All right. How do we divide and conquer?
So the first trick is about recognizing that not all tasks are created equal.
Okay, that makes sense.
The guidebook really emphasizes the importance of knowing which tasks are essential to your mission,
Uh-huh.
which ones are urgent,
Yeah.
and then the ones that are both.
That's smart.
It's about prioritization.
Right. Because otherwise you end up just spinning your wheels.
Exactly. You get bogged down in busy work and never get to those important things.
So how does the guidebook suggest we approach this prioritization?
Well, they actually have this category for tasks that are just unnecessary.
Unnecessary tasks. Like, how do you even identify those?
So these are tasks that don't directly contribute to the mission
Okay.
or things that could easily be put off until later.
Gotcha.
And they say to focus on the urgent and important stuff first,
Makes sense.
then the important but not urgent things.
Okay.
And then finally, if you have time,
Yeah.
those merely urgent tasks.
It's the hierarchy of to-dos.
Yeah. I love that framework. It's so helpful.
It is.
Now, once you've got your priorities straight,
Yeah.
the next trick is figuring out who does what.
The delegation dilemma.
Yes. So the guidebook has some good advice here about considering people's interests and skills.
So matching the right person to the right task.
Yeah, it makes the work more enjoyable.
Absolutely.
And people are more likely to do a good job.
And they'll feel more ownership over the project.
Exactly.
I've definitely seen that firsthand.
Me too. And then the guidebook also talks about how important clear communication is
Oh, communication is key in any team.
when you're delegating tasks.
Yeah.
So that means outlining objectives, deadlines, and resources.
So everyone knows exactly what's expected of them.
And then checking in regularly to offer support and address any challenges.
Right. It's about setting people up for success.
Not just throwing a task over the fence and hoping for the best.
Yeah, delegation isn't a set it and forget it kind of thing.
Not at all.
Okay, so what's the next trick up our sleeve?
Well, it has to do with effective communication overall.
All right, lay it on me.
And they suggest this AIDA technique.
AIDA. What's that stand for?
So it stands for attention, interest, desire, and action.
Okay, break that down for me.
So basically, when you're communicating with your team,
Yeah.
you need to first grab their attention.
Okay, so make them want to listen.
Exactly. And then pique their interest.
Show them why they should care.
Right. Make the information relevant and engaging.
So far, so good.
Then you want to create desire.
Desire. Interesting.
So show them why this information is important and how it can benefit them.
Okay, so it's like a mini marketing campaign.
Kind of. You're selling them on the idea,
Totally.
and then finally you got to give them a clear call to action.
So tell them what to do with this information.
Exactly. Make it actionable.
Okay, I'm starting to see how this AIDA thing works.
Could you give us an example? Like, how would this play out in real life?
Sure. Let's say you're trying to implement a new software system.
Okay. A common challenge.
Instead of just sending out a boring email
Right.
with instructions.
No one's going to read that.
Exactly. So you could use the AIDA approach. Start by grabbing attention with a catchy subject line.
Okay.
Something like, unlock efficiency, introducing our new software.
I'd open that email.
Right. Then you highlight the benefits of the new system.
Like how it saves time.
Yeah. Or how it reduces errors.
So you're creating that desire.
Right. And then, to seal the deal, you share some testimonials from other teams who've already used it successfully.
Love it. Social proof.
And finally, you provide a clear call to action,
Okay.
like a link to training materials or a schedule for webinars.
Perfect. That's such a good example.
It's all about making the information stick.
And inspiring people to take action.
Exactly.
Okay, so what's the next trick?
Well, it's about something that a lot of people find really uncomfortable.
Oh no, what is it?
Conflict.
Oh yeah, conflict can be tough.
But the guidebook actually presents it in a positive light.
Really? How so?
They argue that conflict, when it's handled well, can be a catalyst for growth and innovation.
Okay, I can see that.
Like when you have people with different perspectives and ideas,
Uh-huh.
there's bound to be some friction.
Right.
But that friction can spark creativity and lead to better solutions.
It's like that saying, iron sharpens iron.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
But the key is handling it constructively.
So how do we do that?
Well, the guidebook suggests shifting the focus from winning
Okay.
to understanding.
That's a good point. It's so easy to get caught up in proving you're right.
Yeah, but that just makes the conflict worse.
So instead of trying to win the argument,
Right.
you should try to really listen to the other person.
Exactly, and try to understand their perspective.
That can be hard sometimes.
It can, but it's worth it.
The guidebook also recommends using iMessages
Oh, yeah. That's a classic communication technique.
to express your own perspective without blaming or accusing the other person,
It helps to de-escalate the situation.
and keep the conversation focused on finding a solution.
Exactly.
Does the guidebook have any other tips for navigating those tricky conversations?
They suggest trying role-playing,
Oh, interesting.
where team members actually switch perspectives.
So you can walk in each other's shoes
Yeah, it's a great way to build empathy.
and understand where the other person's coming from.
And if the conflict's really difficult,
Yeah,
they even suggest bringing in a neutral third party to mediate,
that makes sense.
someone who can help facilitate a productive conversation.
Okay, so it sounds like the takeaway here is that conflict doesn't have to be a bad thing.
Not at all.
It's an opportunity to learn and grow.
And strengthen the team as a whole.
Okay, well, speaking of strengthening the team,
Yeah.
the guidebook also offers a framework for decision-making.
Which can be a minefield in itself.
Oh, totally. Decisions can make or break a team.
So how does this guidebook approach decision-making?
Well, they start by outlining these 3 types of decisions.
Okay, what are they?
Strategic, tactical, and operational.
Interesting.
So strategic decisions are the big picture ones,
Okay.
about the overall mission and long-term goals. Tactical decisions are about how to achieve those goals.
Okay.
And operational decisions are more about the day-to-day running of the organization.
So it's like a hierarchy of decisions.
Yeah. Each level requires a different approach.
Makes sense.
And then they go on to outline 7 different decision-making methods.
7. Wow.
From consensus all the way to authoritarian.
So they acknowledge that there's no one-size-fits-all approach.
Right. It depends on the situation.
But do they have a preferred method?
They definitely lean towards consensus whenever possible.
Because it fosters buy-in from the whole team.
Exactly. Everyone feels heard and involved in the decision.
But isn't that really time-consuming?
yeah,
especially with a big team.
Well, the guidebook acknowledges that.
Okay.
And they emphasize that consensus doesn't mean everyone agrees 100%. It just means that everyone's had a chance to share their perspective,
Okay.
and they understand the reasoning behind the final decision.
So it's about finding a solution that everyone can live with.
Exactly, even if it's not everyone's ideal outcome.
That's a really helpful distinction.
It is. So do they give any guidance on how to actually facilitate that consensus-based process?
They do. They have these 5 key principles
5 principles.
for achieving consensus.
Let's hear
The first one is transparency.
So being open and honest about everything,
Exactly. Then there's sincerity.
meaning you're approaching the discussion with genuine respect for everyone's views.
Right. And then there's clarity.
Making sure everyone understands the issue,
Yeah.
the options, and the criteria for making the decision.
Gotcha. So everyone's on the same page.
Yeah. Then there's loyalty.
Okay, so putting the team's needs above your own personal preferences.
Exactly. And finally, collaboration.
Working together to find that win-win solution.
Those are great guidelines. It sounds like it all boils down to fostering a culture of trust and open communication.
It does.
And last but not least, the guidebook talks about the importance of evaluation.
Evaluation, you mean like assessing how the team's doing?
Yeah, not just the decisions themselves,
Right.
but the whole teamwork process.
I like that.
Because it's how we learn and grow.
So how do they suggest we approach evaluation?
They encourage teams to see it as an opportunity for learning,
Okay.
rather than a judgment.
So it's not about pointing fingers.
No.
It's about identifying areas for improvement.
Exactly. And celebrating successes, of course.
Right. Celebrate the wins.
And they even suggest some creative evaluation methods.
Oh, like what?
One idea is creating a collective mural,
A mural. Interesting.
where team members draw their impressions of the team's work.
Wow, I love that. It's a visual way to capture everyone's perspective.
It is, or they suggest writing a telegram with anonymous feedback.
So people can feel comfortable sharing their honest thoughts.
Yeah, it's all about making the process more engaging and insightful.
I love those ideas. It's about turning feedback into action.
Exactly. And ultimately, that's what this guidebook is all about,
Yeah.
giving you those practical tools to build a better team.
It's been a really interesting dive into this Spanish guidebook.
It has. And even though it's focused on associations,
Yeah,
I think there's so much in there that anyone can apply to their own teams.
totally agree.
And it even touches on the emotional side of teamwork.
Oh, right. Because it's not always easy.
No, it's not. There are going to be moments of frustration and tension.
And even exhaustion sometimes.
Totally.
Yeah.
So how does the guidebook address that?
Well, they remind us that teams are made up of people,
Okay.
and people are complex.
Right.
They encourage us to practice empathy, to be patient with each other.
And ourselves.
Yeah. And to remember that we're all in this together.
That's so important. It's easy to get caught up in the tasks
Yeah.
and forget that we're working with real human beings.
We all have our good days and our bad days.
Absolutely. And the guidebook actually injects a little humor here.
Oh, good.
They say their ultimate goal is to help teams work together
Okay.
without throwing things at each other's heads.
Haha. I love that.
I think we've all been in those meetings where the tension is palpable.
Definitely.
So a little humor can go a long way.
It can lighten the mood and help people feel more connected.
Absolutely.
It really can. So, where do we go from here? We've covered a lot of ground.
We have. This deep dive has been so insightful, this Spanish guidebook.
Yeah.
It's amazing how much it has to offer,
Right.
even though it's focused on associations.
Yeah, there are so many universal truths about teamwork in there.
Absolutely. So let's do a quick recap.
All right, hit me with those key takeaways.
Okay, first up,
Yeah.
remember that associations can be these powerful schools of participation.
Right. They can really empower people to learn and grow and make a difference.
And then as teams evolve, they go through those 4 stages of development: formation, storming, norming, and performing.
Each stage with its own set of challenges and opportunities.
Right. And when it comes to getting things done, you got to prioritize.
Yeah, not all tasks are created equal.
And when you're delegating, consider people's interests and skills.
Make sure it's a good fit.
Exactly. And we can't forget about communication.
Oh, communication is key. That AIDA technique is a game changer.
It is. Attention, interest, desire, action.
It's a great framework.
It is. And then the guidebook also encourages us to reframe our perspective on conflict.
Right. Don't be afraid of it.
It can actually be a good thing.
It can lead to growth and innovation.
Absolutely. And when making decisions, aim for consensus whenever possible.
So everyone feels heard and bought into the decision.
Exactly. And then finally, don't forget about evaluation.
Right. It's how we learn and improve.
It's not about judgment, it's about growth.
That's a great way to put it.
Wow, we really packed it all in.
We did.
This guidebook is a goldmine of wisdom.
It is. And there's this one quote that I think really sums it all up.
Okay, what is it?
Teams are not static.
Okay.
They're living, breathing organisms that evolve. Embrace the change.
That's beautiful. It's a great reminder that teamwork is a journey.
Yeah.
It's constantly evolving.
And we need to adapt along the way.
So as you go about your day, I want you to think about one aspect of teamwork
Yeah.
that you'd like to focus on improving.
Whether it's communication, conflict resolution, or just being more mindful of those 4 stages of development.
Exactly.
Or maybe it's time to just take a moment to celebrate all the great teamwork that's already happening.
Cheers to that.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of teamwork.
We'll see you next time for another fascinating exploration of knowledge